In the long grass, out in the fields at the edge of town, behind the estate with its high-rise spires and ordered sprawl of red brick homes, and windswept streets where we'd kick off with the roughneck local kids over dubious ball game scorelines, and lay talking about our school-time awkward adolescent fumble at the end of the playing field and then regrettably not much more times, with the sun overhead and our heads in our hands, staring up into blue skies and power lines, and the whole humming blur of it all, so glaringly present in moments that never felt momentous until later recalled. Just minutes and hours, in the long grass and flowers, turning red in the sunshine, feeling 5 miles tall. And then again in the long grass, cut in rows that concealed us from the unwelcome gaze of a town that we'd spent 18 years trying to leave, just smoking our wages and wasting our summers rum drunk in the streets, beneath the weight of the change that we all knew was coming, that we heard from a distance like a fast-moving train, and felt on our skin like the wind before rain. And though we hit the ground running, we could never outrun it. So we lay in the long grass in the late afternoon, as the sun dragged our shadows through the Hertfordshire clay, and waited for lives that would come for us soon, and slowly but surely cut our old lives away. So many years later, after falling so far, we walked in that long grass and talked for hours about the past, and how the present connected to those helium days, when we floated above it all high on the haze, how we burned ever brighter like fields set ablaze, and how the heat beat incessantly, stripped the wings from our shoulders, sent us spiraling downwards into drinks that consoled us and jobs that controlled us, until a decade had passed and left us 20 years older. So we came back to all that we'd once left behind, to the places that rippled like wrinkles in time, that somehow remained undisturbed and unchanged, like lines on the palm of a hand. And now, far from the long grass, living rainy day plans, I find I'm thinking more often about all of those moments that we spent gazing skywards, all those hours I soared before life made me heavy and time made me a man. We are slow burning comets on a course round the sun, but I am stuck staring backwards at the trail I have left and the things I have done. So when our lives leave us empty and the world has derailed, I will think of the long grass where we lay and believed that our dreams would prevail.
Flying Ants is a poem that features alongside a collection of other poems that I wrote about the estate I grew up in and around. It's a poem about feeling trapped. Sometimes estates can get on top of you, and I think because of the physicality of them as well especially, it can tend to make you feel that you're never going to leave that area, that place. And I think flying ants get a lot of bad press, they get a lot of negative attention, and I used to spend a lot of time as a small child, as a lot of boys do, playing soldiers in the dirt or on my knees in the dirt, messing about, always caked in mud. And the ants used to fascinate me. I used to watch the ants and the way they worked, and they'd pass like seeds around and they'd walk with the seeds on their head. And I always thought it was amazing how these little creatures work together, but even more amazing that some of them randomly had wings and they could just fly the nest and start a colony of their own. And I aspired to be a bit like a flying ant later in life, and that's what this poem is about. And I didn't realise that they discard their wings, and I couldn't believe it when I found out. I thought, if you were given wings, you could go anywhere. What waste to get rid of them. But it kind of is poetic in itself, because they're that content with the spot that they found. They set up and make home, and ultimately that estate was where I felt most at home. Flying ants. When I was small, I'd sit on the slab of green in the middle of the estate watching the ants. Their disciplined lines, my first real lesson in hard graft. An ant can lift 20 times its own body weight and does so selflessly in line, grain held proudly above its body. I never watched a rogue ant run off into the boggy sunset. The line didn't go there. They live in extremes, fight to their deaths, work themselves into the ground, but always in line. 1 week each year I'd listen as people moaned about the flying ants, how they'd swarmed up and taken over the estate. Every year I'd watch them, green eyes glinting. When they find a suitable spot, they discard their wings. What a waste. Each year I flew high above Cromdale Tower in search of a new nest. Nuptial flight, freedom my queen, the Peckham House colony far behind. Wings discarded, I gripped the dirt, letting it pass through my fingers like a sieve. One day, I'd return to the earth, and this would be someone else's grain to burden. But what a burden it is.